Hi, I'm Scott Jones, Bishop of the Kansas area of the United Methodist Church. And I want to thank you and the people who are with you for taking time to visit with me for a little bit about the future of the United Methodist Church in Kansas. I wanted to share with you my perspective on some changes that have been going on in our conferences, since I became bishop. Back in 2005, I asked 4 big questions of each of our annual conferences and called sessions. I asked, how are we going to start more and stronger new congregations? How are we going to strengthen our existing congregations? How are we going to improve our ministries with ethnic minority persons here in Kansas? And how are we going to strengthen our youth ministries? Those questions led to a strategic planning process. Those plans were adopted at annual conferences in 2006, which then led to the Bridges to the Future capital campaign. That was incredibly successful. Because of faithful individuals and faithful congregations, we raised over $10 million in pledges in both conferences put together. Those pledges are now being paid. Many individuals have completed their pledges. Many congregations, despite the economic recession, are faithfully working on paying off their pledges so that that money will be available. One of my privileges as bishop is to sit with the focus team in the West Conference and the leadership team in the East Conference as we're able to respond to requests from our ministries that are asking for that Bridges to the Future money to be given out to them. Some of it's being spent on revitalizing churches. Some of it's being spent to strengthen our campus ministries at state universities. Some of it is being spent on new congregations. Some of it's being spent on Hispanic ministries. Some of it's being spent on facility renovation at our camps. In other words, this money is being used for great purposes. It's being used responsibly. When we were raising the money during the campaign, I promised you that I would work hard to make sure that the operational side, the day-in, day-out ministries that make those places where God can work to change lives and to transform communities, that those would be operating at their highest possible levels. We still are making progress in those areas, and I want to tell you that we're changing lives and doing amazing things in all those places. I'm grateful to all of you who are making payments on your Bridges pledges and are going to finish off by making this campaign successful, measured by the percentage of the pledges that are actually paid in. I know that for some of us, we're extending them a little longer than we thought. Mary Lou and I are in that boat. We thought we would have finished by now. But instead, we're going to complete our pledge and do it in a timely way by just taking a little bit of extra time. The Bridges campaign has made a huge difference in so many of our ministries, and I'm grateful to you for both pledging and fulfilling your pledges in the payment process. One of the things that has taken place over the last several years is that the conversation about the future of the United Methodist Church has, it's really taken off. Within the Council of Bishops, we responded to the recent economic recession by asking some very difficult questions. We think that the whole economic model that funds our connectional ministry as a denomination needs to be re-examined. The Council of Bishops, along with a group called the Connectional Table, put together a team of people under the heading Call to Action. They issued a report last fall, and the call to action says that as a whole denomination, we face an incredible challenge. We have an adaptive challenge that says we need to redirect our focus, our energies, and our money on the single task of increasing the number of vital congregations here in the United States and around the world. They have lots and lots of data gathered from a variety of sources about what drives a vital congregation. And they've listed a number of recommendations for how these drivers of vitality can best be implemented. I want you to know that as a bishop of the church, I'm actively involved in working with the people who are leading this, because we think that responding to this adaptive challenge is actually crucial. Adaptive means there's no quick and easy answer. A technical challenge is one where you have a known problem and a known solution, and you just do it. The example I use in trying to get across this idea is that if your child has an ear infection, You take them to the doctor who diagnoses it. They prescribe amoxicillin. You give it to them for 7 days, and boom, the ear infection's gone. I know, I had 3 kids who had lots of ear infections. Been there, done that. An adaptive challenge is one that requires a large group of people to make changes in their behaviors, their attitudes, their values. That adaptation is not easy, and it takes a long time. Well, that's where we are. We have an adaptive challenge of trying to figure out how can we do a better job of having vital congregations in our denomination. Well, when I go to these national and international meetings, I'm proud of what we've done in Kansas. Remember the question about strengthening our existing congregations? The question about starting new congregations? The one about improving our youth and young adult ministries? The one about our ethnic minority ministries? That's all in the report, people. We are ahead of the curve in Kansas. We have been asking the right questions. We've been gathering important resources. And so when I go, I can say, well, here's how we're addressing those issues. And yet I have to admit to you, well, quite frankly, we haven't turned it around yet. The recent census report shows that 77 of the 105 counties in Kansas lost population last decade. So we know that in this demographic new period of time, that, well, it's not going to be like it was in the 1920s. And yet we're not giving up on any of our existing churches because we know that United Methodist Ministry in our smallest communities, sometimes in open country areas, let alone our county seat towns and urban areas, all of those congregations are powerfully witnessing to the Word of God and changing lives. They're all important. And so when we talk about strengthening our rural ministries, we mean it. And we're continuing to produce webinars through our Center for Small Membership Churches that's trying to help our smallest congregations figure out how to be faithful to God and even more fruitful in the future than they have in the recent past. We're doing a lot of other things through our ministries of revitalization. We've instituted the incubator program. We've instituted Abide. Leadership and Faith Transforming Communities is already at work helping our congregations who go through this leadership training process to engage their communities and help them to be better places. Yes, it's a health ministry grant, but we understand health to involve all kinds of things, and there are lots of innovative ministries being undertaken because of this training program. There are lots of others that are going on. But I want you to know that I've instructed the extended cabinet, we've all agreed together, that we're going to evaluate all of these programs to figure out how to improve them, maybe consolidate them. We're going to continue this effort of helping our existing congregations be stronger. At the same time, we're doing a better job of starting new congregations. In the Wichita area in the summer of 2011, we're going to be starting 2 new congregations. We've started new congregations in the Johnson County area. We're doing a number of things in places across the state to evaluate where are there underserved people. Some of those new congregations are Hispanic, and we're working hard to address the fact that most of the population growth in Kansas was a result of new Hispanic people in our state. Therefore, our Hispanic ministry emphasis that started long before I became bishop but has gotten stronger because of Bridges to the Future money and other efforts that we've made, that Hispanic ministry effort is going to be strong. We're also going to continue our emphasis on African American churches and Korean churches and others as we see opportunities present themselves. Our camps are vital. One of the things that the cabinet and I are aware of are that there's going to be a number of retirements among the clergy of the Kansas area in the next 10 years. We know that we need more people making themselves available as local pastors, both part-time and full-time, and as deacons and elders available for full-time appointment. Where are those people going to come from? Well, our camping ministries, our youth ministries at the conference level, our campus ministries at state schools, as well as our strong relationships with Baker, Southwestern, and Kansas Wesleyan. These are all vital places. Because the church is engaged with young people at the formative stages of their lives, sometimes we can help them hear God's call. We're going to need more young clergy. Thank God for people who come into the ministry in mid-career, second, third, fourth career, whatever it is. But we know that we need younger clergy who will give 3 to 4 decades of service to God through the ordained ministry of the United Methodist Church. Therefore, we're putting a big emphasis on how we help people hear God's call. We know that happens best at camps and campus ministries, through youth ministries and other conference activities, and our renewed focus on these areas is an important part of how we discern the best way to let people offer themselves for God's ministry through the United Methodist Church. We're undergoing some staff changes at the conference level because I've been asking people, what would it look like if we took seriously this adaptive challenge and the recommendation the call to action has made that we should dramatically transform our clergy recruitment, credentialing, and appointment process? We're doing well. Every one of our churches in Kansas has a pastor. But you know, doing well isn't good enough. We need to be doing the very best that we possibly can for God's kingdom. So it is that we're going to be employing a registrar for the boards of ordained ministry, doing that with both the East Conference and the West Conference, but also the Nebraska Annual Conference, which leads me to another change. Yes, the South Central jurisdiction has told us that Nebraska and Kansas will be served by one bishop starting in 2012. A transition team has been hard at work, praying, thinking, dreaming, and recently in a webcast, they made a recommendation that says we ought to be moving toward one annual conference for both states. That's going to be debated at all 3 annual conferences this year, and we want people to be fully informed. Lots of questions are being raised, and the conversation is a rich one. We're not exactly sure how the conferences will vote and exactly how the process is going to develop. But we know that under one bishop, the 3 annual conferences are going to be working more closely together in the future than they have in the past, and that there are going to be ways in which our mutual cooperation will strengthen the ministry in all 3 places. The transition team, and Bishop Sheriff Simpson and I agree with this, the transition team believes that becoming one annual conference will empower us to do a better job of deploying passionate, effective, and accountable spiritual leaders into the mission field. That means lay leadership training. That means clergy leadership training. That means making sure that every one of our churches has the best possible pastor. We know that that whole leadership development process is an important one, and we think this move toward one annual conference is a way in which that will happen. It's a controversial decision. And people have told me that, well, we need more information or we need to talk more about it. Trust me, there's going to be plenty of talking over the next 2 to 4 years. But I want you to know that we're not doing this to be doing some sort of bureaucratic reshuffling. This is part of a big process. It's one where we're asking big questions about the future of our church and how God can use us to accomplish God's purposes. I'm a committed United Methodist Christian. Yes, I'm a 4th-generation preacher. Yes, I did a PhD in Methodist history and the theology of John Wesley. Yes, I'm proud to be a United Methodist clergy person. You know, and yet, I'm also a United Methodist clergy and leader by conviction. I think God has an incredibly bright future for our denomination. Yes, we have our issues. Yes, we've been drifting too much. Yes, we need a greater focus on evangelism and church planting. Yes, we've got all these things out there. But here's what I believe. I believe that the United Methodist Church has within its history, has within its living memory, has within its clergy and its lay people, has in our DNA everything we need to be revitalized, growing, and strong. It's an adaptive challenge. And yet, we can adapt. Bill Bright, the founder of Campus Crusade for Christ, said at a Congress on Evangelism meeting about 20 years ago that if a genuine revival of Christianity is ever going to come in America, it'll come through the United Methodist Church. He said, that the United Methodist Church has the doctrine if they'll only preach it. They have the history if they'll only remember it. And they have the connectional system if they'll only use it. Friends, as your bishop, I'm trying to teach the doctrine of our church. I'm trying to help us remember that we once were a growing denomination that was flexible and nimble in adapting to changing demographic realities to accomplish God's mission. And I know that when we get organized, we can be incredibly fruitful and effective. I'm sending this video out to lots of people. My intention is that it might be viewed in a committee in a local church or in an annual conference or a district or some other gathering. And so if you're seated with your sisters and brothers, people who have committed along with you to serving Christ through the United Methodist Church, let me say this: I'm grateful for what you do as a group. I hope you're growing closer together in your support of each other, in your love and care for each other, in your encouragement of each other, because that's the spiritual bonds of connection. When we pray for each other, when we work together, when we are a team asking, okay, God, how can you use us to make a difference and change lives and transform the world? That's way cool. Friends, I'm a part of that kind of team. It's a blessing for me to be a part of the Kansas East and Kansas West annual conferences. Once again, thanks for all you do, and let's do it even better in the future. God bless you.